Both consuls leading the senatorial armies at the Battle of Mutina were killed, leaving Octavian in command of the remaining forces. He now possessed something that could not easily be taken away: an army loyal to him personally. With thousands of soldiers behind him, Octavian marched toward Rome, not as a conqueror, but as a man demanding recognition. The Senate had little choice but to yield. At just 19 years old, Octavian was elected consul, becoming one of the youngest men ever to hold Rome's highest elected office. Yet the Republic remained dangerously divided. Neither Octavian nor Antony could eliminate the other without risking another devastating civil war. Pragmatism replaced hostility. In late 43 BC, Octavian, Mark Antony, and Marcus Aemilius Lepidus reached an agreement that reshaped Roman politics. Together, they formed the Second Triumvirate, a legally established alliance granted extraordinary authority to restore order to the Republic. Its members divided Rome's territories among themselves and pledged to hunt down those responsible for Caesar's assassination. Their first actions were ruthless. Political enemies were declared outlaws through sweeping proscriptions. Hundreds were executed, and many more lost their property. Among the victims was the renowned orator Cicero, whose speeches against Antony had made him one of the Triumvir's most famous opponents. The alliance had secured power, but at a terrible human cost. The final reckoning came in 42 BC on the plains near Philippi in Macedonia. There, the combined armies of Octavian and Antony confronted the forces led by Caesar's assassins, Brutus and Cassius. The battles were fierce and costly. When the fighting finally ended, Brutus and Cassius took their own lives rather than face capture. The men who had ended Caesar's life were gone. The republic they claimed to defend would never fully recover. The victors divided the Roman world between themselves. Antony took the wealthy eastern provinces. Octavian assumed control of the west, where he faced the difficult task of settling veterans, rebuilding stability, and strengthening his political position. The alliance had defeated a common enemy, but peace between its leaders would not last. As Octavian consolidated power in the west and Antony established himself in the east, suspicion slowly replaced cooperation. Rome no longer faced one struggle for supremacy. It was moving toward another, one that would determine not only who ruled the Republic, but whether the Republic itself would survive. The third member of the Triumvirate, Lepidus, held much of North Africa. Although officially equal to his partners, his influence steadily declined. Compared with the growing rivalry between Octavian and Antony, Lepidus increasingly became a spectator rather than a contender. Octavian understood that appearances mattered as much as victories. He portrayed himself as the defender of Roman traditions, emphasizing stability and order. Public ceremonies, carefully crafted speeches, and generous rewards for veterans all strengthened his image among the Roman people. Antony projected a different kind of leadership. He spent much of his time governing the eastern provinces, where local rulers admired Rome's power but also expected diplomacy and generosity. His experience as a commander earned respect, yet his long absence from Italy gradually allowed Octavian to dominate Roman politics. In 41 BC, events in the East introduced a figure who would shape the destiny of both men. Queen Cleopatra VII of Egypt traveled to meet Mark Antony at the city of Tarsus. Their meeting was no accident. Cleopatra ruled one of the wealthiest kingdoms in the Mediterranean. Egypt possessed fertile farmland, enormous grain reserves, skilled craftsmen, and vast financial resources. Since the death of Julius Caesar, she had carefully protected her throne while watching Rome's internal struggles unfold. Antony needed Egypt's wealth to finance future campaigns against Rome's eastern rivals. Cleopatra needed Rome's strongest commander to secure her kingdom against both internal and external threats. Modern historians generally see practical interests as the foundation of their alliance. Both leaders recognized that cooperation could strengthen their own positions in an increasingly unstable world. As the years passed, Antony spent more time in the eastern Mediterranean. Together, Antony and Cleopatra organized campaigns, managed kingdoms allied to Rome, and strengthened Egypt's influence across the region. They also had children together, creating a family whose future became deeply interlinked with politics. To many people living in the eastern provinces, Antony appeared to be building a stable center of power capable of governing half the Roman world. But in Rome, perceptions were very different. News traveled slowly, often distorted by rumor and political propaganda. Reports of Antony adopting Eastern customs, celebrating lavish ceremonies, and granting territories to Cleopatra alarmed many senators. Whether every accusation was true mattered less than how effectively those stories could be used. No one exploited them more successfully than Octavian. Octavian launched one of history's earliest and most effective political propaganda campaigns. He presented himself as the guardian of traditional Roman values while portraying Antony as a leader who had abandoned his homeland for a foreign queen. Coins, speeches, public monuments, and official announcements repeated the same message. This was no longer merely a struggle between two Roman politicians. According to Octavian's narrative, it had become a struggle to defend Rome. Cleopatra occupied the center of that story. She was depicted not simply as Queen of Egypt, but as an ambitious monarch whose influence threatened Roman independence. Whether fair or not, the image spread rapidly throughout Italy. The political battle became almost as important as the military one. In 36 BC, the balance of power shifted again. After a failed military campaign against Parthia weakened Antony's prestige, Octavian quietly moved against Lepidus. Accusing him of attempting to seize control of Sicily, Octavian stripped Lepidus of nearly all political authority. His armies transferred their loyalty to Octavian, leaving the once powerful Triumvirate alive but effectively removed from public life. The Second Triumvirate had become a partnership in name only. Now only two rivals remained. One ruled the West, the other dominated the East. Neither could accept sharing power forever. Both sides prepared for the confrontation that increasingly seemed impossible to avoid. The fate of the Roman world would soon be decided not by debate in the Senate, but on the battlefield. Octavian understood that defeating Antony required more than military strength. He first had to convince Rome that this conflict was necessary. Rather than declaring war on Antony directly, Octavian focused public attention on Cleopatra. Officially, Rome declared war against the Queen of Egypt. The strategy proved remarkably effective. Many Romans who might have hesitated to fight fellow citizens instead rallied behind the promise of protecting Rome from outside threats. Preparations for war accelerated across the Mediterranean. Octavian entrusted command of his naval forces to his closest friend and most capable admiral, Marcus Agrippa. Agrippa reorganized Rome's fleet, trained thousands of sailors, and secured key positions along the western coast. Meanwhile, Antony and Cleopatra assembled one of the largest fleets seen in generations. Ships arrived from Egypt and allied kingdoms throughout the eastern Mediterranean. Veteran Roman legions stood beside Egyptian forces, preparing for the decisive campaign ahead. On September 2nd, 31 BC, the opposing fleets met near the Greek coast at Actium. Agrippa's careful planning gradually gave Octavian's forces the advantage. His smaller, more maneuverable ships disrupted Antony's larger fleet, while months of strategic blockades had already weakened Antony's supplies and morale. As fighting intensified, Cleopatra's squadron broke through the fighting and sailed south toward Egypt. Shortly afterward, Antony abandoned the battle to follow her. Whether this was a planned withdrawal or a desperate decision remains debated by historians, but its consequences were immediate. Leaderless, much of Antony's fleet surrendered or was destroyed. The Battle of Actium was over. Although casualties were lower than in many famous ancient battles, its political consequences were enormous. One victory had effectively decided the future of the Roman world. Octavian did not immediately celebrate. Instead, he pursued his defeated rivals. Nearly a year later, his armies entered Egypt. Facing certain defeat, Antony took his own life. Soon afterward, Cleopatra also died, bringing an end to the Ptolemaic dynasty that had ruled Egypt for more than 2 centuries. With Egypt annexed, Rome gained one of the wealthiest territories in the Mediterranean. Its grain, taxes, and immense royal treasury dramatically strengthened Octavian's position. No rival remained capable of challenging his authority. Octavian recognized that Romans had grown weary of kings and dictators. Instead of proclaiming himself king, Octavian chose a different path. In 27 BC, he formally announced that he was restoring authority to the Senate and the Roman people. The gesture was carefully calculated. The Senate, grateful or perhaps recognizing political reality, responded by granting him extraordinary powers and a new honorific title. From that moment forward, Octavian became Augustus, meaning the respected one or the admired. The name carried religious and political significance without openly claiming monarchy. It marked the symbolic birth of a new era. Although republican institutions continued to exist, real authority increasingly rested in Augustus's hands. He became commander of the armies, controlled key provinces, directed foreign policy, and exercised immense influence over Roman government. In practice, a new political system had emerged. Historians call it the Principate, a government in which one man held supreme authority while preserving the appearance of republican tradition. It was a constitutional compromise that allowed Rome to move beyond decades of civil war without openly abandoning its republican heritage. After generations of bloodshed, the Mediterranean finally stood on the threshold of lasting peace. The age of Augustus had begun. Augustus knew that political stability depended on military loyalty. For generations, Roman soldiers had followed ambitious generals who promised wealth and glory. He reduced the oversized armies left behind by decades of civil war, settling many veterans on land throughout the empire. The remaining legions became a permanent professional force, paid directly by the imperial government rather than individual commanders. To secure soldiers' retirement benefits, Augustus established a military treasury funded through dedicated taxes. The reforms encouraged loyalty to the Roman state and ultimately to the emperor himself. At the same time, he created one of Rome's most famous military formations, the Praetorian Guard. Stationed close to the capital, these elite troops served as the emperor's personal bodyguards and protected the government from internal threats. Ironically, the organization created to safeguard future emperors would, in later centuries, become one of the most powerful political forces in Rome. Peace allowed prosperity to return. Merchants once again crossed the Mediterranean in growing numbers. Roads connected distant provinces with remarkable efficiency, allowing troops, officials, and goods to travel faster than ever before. Roman engineers expanded bridges, aqueducts, and ports that strengthened both trade and daily life. Agriculture flourished across fertile provinces such as Egypt, North Africa, and Gaul. Taxes became more predictable, provincial administration grew more organized, economic stability slowly replaced decades of uncertainty. The Mediterranean increasingly functioned as a single, interconnected world. Augustus also believed that Rome's strength depended upon more than armies and wealth. He wanted to restore traditional Roman values. Marriage laws encouraged citizens to raise families. Certain moral reforms attempted to discourage adultery among Rome's elite. Ancient religious ceremonies that had declined during years of conflict were revived. Temples across the empire were restored or rebuilt. As Pontifex Maximus, Rome's chief priest, Augustus presented himself not only as a political leader, but as the guardian of Roman religion and tradition. Religion became another pillar supporting his authority. No emperor shaped the appearance of Rome more dramatically. Construction projects transformed the capital into a city worthy of ruling an empire. According to a famous tradition recorded by later writers, Augustus proudly declared, "I found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble." Whether entirely literal or partly symbolic, the statement captured the extraordinary transformation that occurred during his reign. The capital itself became a visible demonstration of imperial power. The arts flourished alongside architecture. Augustus understood that stories could shape history as effectively as armies. He supported poets, historians, and artists whose works celebrated Rome's greatness. Among them was the poet Virgil, whose epic, the Aeneid, traced Rome's mythical origins to the Trojan hero Aeneas. The poem connected Augustus's rule to Rome's legendary destiny, presenting the empire's rise as part of a divinely guided history. Literature became another instrument through which the new age was defined. Perhaps Augustus's greatest achievement was something that could not be built from stone. For the first time in generations, much of the Roman world experienced prolonged internal stability. Historians later called this era the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Although wars continued along the empire's frontiers, civil war largely disappeared. Trade expanded, cities prospered, population increased. Roman law spread across vast territories stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Near East. Millions of people lived under a level of security that earlier generations could scarcely have imagined. The system Augustus created would endure, with modifications, for centuries. Yet even as the empire reached unprecedented stability, the aging emperor faced a problem that no amount of political skill could permanently solve. Who would rule after him? That question would dominate the final years of his extraordinary life. For all his political success, Augustus found little certainty within his own family. He had spent decades creating a stable government capable of surviving him. Finding the right successor proved far more difficult. His closest friend and trusted general, Marcus Agrippa, had long appeared to be the ideal partner in governing the empire. Agrippa's military victories had secured many of Augustus's greatest triumphs. To strengthen their alliance, Augustus arranged for Agrippa to marry his daughter, Julia. Together they produced several children who seemed destined to continue the new imperial dynasty. But in 12 BC, Agrippa died unexpectedly. Once again, Augustus was forced to rethink the future. His hopes then rested upon his grandsons, Gaius Caesar and Lucius Caesar, whom he formally adopted as his heirs. They were carefully educated for leadership and widely presented to the Roman people as the empire's future rulers. But fate intervened again. Lucius died in AD 2 while traveling to Spain. Just 2 years later, Gaius died from wounds suffered during military service in the East. The carefully planned succession collapsed. The emperor who had mastered politics could not master fortune. With few remaining options, Augustus reluctantly turned to his stepson, Tiberius, the son of his wife, Livia. An experienced commander and capable administrator, Tiberius possessed considerable military skill. Yet his relationship with Augustus was often complicated. Some ancient writers portrayed Tiberius as reluctant to accept public life. Others suggested tensions within the imperial family. Separating rumor from reality is difficult, but by AD 4, Augustus formally adopted Tiberius as his son and heir. The succession was finally secured, at least for the moment. While political matters occupied his attention, the empire itself continued to evolve. Not every campaign ended in success. In AD 9, Rome suffered one of the greatest military disasters in its history. 3 Roman legions were destroyed in the forests of Germania during the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, where Germanic forces led by Arminius ambushed the Roman army commanded by Publius Quintilius Varus. The defeat shocked the empire. According to later tradition, Augustus repeatedly cried, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." Whether spoken exactly as recorded or not, the story reflects the profound impact of the catastrophe. The disaster effectively ended Augustus's ambitions of expanding Roman control deep into Germania. Instead, the Rhine increasingly became one of the empire's principal frontiers. Even the greatest ruler could not control every battlefield. Despite occasional setbacks, Augustus remained the central figure of Roman politics for more than 4 decades. Generations had grown up knowing no other leader. Many Romans who had once feared monarchy now associated stability with the emperor himself. The institutions he created had become part of everyday government. In AD 14, after a reign lasting more than 40 years, Augustus died in the town of Nola at the age of 75. Ancient accounts preserve several different stories about his final words, making it impossible to know exactly what he said. One famous account attributes to him the theatrical farewell. "If I have played my part well, applaud as I exit." Whether those were truly his last words remains uncertain. What is certain is that the Roman world paused to honor the man who had transformed its history. The Senate declared Augustus a god through the process of deification, and his adopted son Tiberius peacefully assumed power. For the first time in Roman history, imperial succession had occurred without another civil war. The system Augustus designed had passed its first great test. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this as we continue exploring the people, empires, and events that shaped history. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.